Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amir Rochalina.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast is brought to you by Holland Harnham Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Harnham Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. I'm joined today by Alex Hughes. Alex is the owner of Auxilium Administration Services, providing a range of admin services to support businesses remotely or on-premise. What's unique about Alex is how she draws from her experience in corporate banking to provide a friendly, outsourced administration service that lets business owners review processes, procedures, projects, and tasks, helping them get back on track with their admin. And be sure to listen to the end, where Alex shares some interesting insights into what a good administration function should look like in a small business. So whether you're interested in knowing more about how you could outsource some of your firm's administration function, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Welcome, Alex Hughes, to the Inside Kingston podcast. Alex, I'm really excited about this conversation because being a partner in a client-facing business myself, I know only too well of the value of having good administration support to help me run my business. And I think that our listeners can learn a lot from your experience in this area to perhaps try to improve some of their own business processes too. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time if that's okay. So where did you grow up?
Well, I am a local lady. I was born in Isleworth, in West Middlesex Hospital, and I lived in and around Heston and Isleworth and went to school in those areas up until I left after my A-levels. So I am a local lady, and then I've lived in other areas like Weybridge, Dorking, Walton, Wimbledon, and now more recently, last 15 years in New Malden, Kingston.
Fantastic. And what did you study at college?
Well, I actually left school aged 18 and I did have an opportunity to go to university and I didn't take it for lots of reasons, but I went on into banking. I went to work for Lloyds Bank as a management trainee. I worked there for a couple of years under a management training program, and then I went home one day and saw an advert for a back office person in a international bank, which doesn't exist anymore, but is now called JP Morgan Chase. It was called Chemical Bank in those days. Mm-hmm. And I moved across from Lloyds Bank, having been on the management training scheme and gone through all the levels in there up to sub-manager assistant. And I started off in the back office as a chemical bank, and ended up trading foreign exchange and money markets. And after that, I moved across to Reuters and I sold the dealing equipment that I actually used as a dealer. I sold it back into the banks. I did that for, another 7 years. So I think 2 years in Lloyds Bank, 7.5 years in Chemical Bank, and 7 years in Reuters. In that time, I had married my lovely husband and had 2 children and looked at work-life balance and took voluntary redundancy. And then from there, I was going to have a think about what I was going to do. And in true Alex style, about 3 months later, I was helping a friend and they run a bespoke furniture manufacturers in Wandsworth. 17 years later, and an admin manager was born through working for them from 2 hours around my children to 3 days a week. So I worked for them for 17 years. So that's where the administration side has crept into my career.
That's fantastic.
Although, say crept in, it's been quite a large part of it, actually.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. So the arc of the story has already captured my imagination. So going from corporate banking into administration services, tell us a little bit about your business today.
Okay. So having worked as an administration manager for 17 years, the last 3 or 4 years of that, a lot of friends and family said, could I help them? And over the time that I was helping them, I was thinking, gosh, I could set up a business doing this. And what I wanted to do, my passion was to give back to businesses in Kingston and show them the power of outsourcing admin tasks that just take too much time, or their to-do list goes round and round, or they haven't got time for research, or they haven't got time for this manual or this accreditation process. So the way I've helped clients is to sort of step in as what I would call an online business manager, as opposed to a virtual assistant, which I tend to sort of clarify myself as an OBM as opposed to a VA.
Could you expand on that a bit for us, Alex? Because I've seen you use that phrase online business manager before. How is that different in your view to, say, being a virtual assistant?
Okay, so first of all, we have to clarify virtual assistant. So when people say virtual assistant, they automatically think of someone who does a little bit of admin, and I put that in inverted commas. Mm-hmm. But actually, I think virtual assistants is an industry. I've met many, many people who work virtually. There might be a copywriter, a bookkeeper, social media expert, and so it goes on. So I think a virtual assistant is actually somebody who works virtually for a business. Having said that, though, if you're thinking of a virtual assistant as admin-based or admin task, the difference between a VA and an OBM is a VA is very tasks-focused and an OBM is more strategy-focused. Mm-hmm. So a VA will require direction, an OBM will work independently, a VA will work for clients on small retainers, and an OBM will work for fewer clients on larger retainers, doing larger project works. They can manage a team. They'll use their initiative. They'll drive the business. There'll be a second brain, if you like, and a safe pair of hands. It's not to say that what a VA does is not worth anything. It's just very different. And I think my experience over time has elevated me into that sort of arena, if you like. So that's why I call myself an online business manager. I think my 17 years experience has allowed me to see things top down, how a small business works and operates, and the pitfalls and the good things and the bad things. So that's where I'm looking more at strategy, but it does involve administration and all the processes that making a business and their owners successful and allowing them to get on doing what they're in business for.
That's really interesting, Alex. And there's quite a few bits I want to unpack in that throughout this conversation. To kick that off, could you mind giving us some examples of how businesses have used your services?
Yeah, so I have helped a housing technology company locally here. They wanted to set up a recruitment website, so I did a lot of sales background work there to get them to come on board. I helped my brother-in-law with his Wi-Fi company with an events situation. I've actually helped Love Kingston recently with some of their administration as they're going through changes there. I've helped my old furniture company who've had me back in. I've helped people who've worked there, who've set up their own companies because I know all the health and safety aspects. So I've helped a lot of those people with the health and safety. I've done a few audits where I've gone through everything that admin touches within a company and given them a list of high, medium and low priorities and helped them unravel their spaghetti brain. Because I think a lot of admin people, admin makes people get really sort of confused about where they should go and what's actually most important. So I help to unravel that. I do a lot of onboarding for bookkeeping, so helping the client to make sure that all the money laundering information is correct before they get on and do their tasks with the bookkeeping. I'm supporting a couple of speakers. I'm helping a software company with their artificial intelligence software. I've helped a coach. I've done some research for a copywriter. And the list goes on.
It really is varied. It sounds to me like a really interesting space that you work in.
It is. And people say, what's your niche? And my niche is helping in small businesses in Kingston. I think my experience covers a whole realm of things and I can put my hand to a lot of things. There's lots of things I can't do, and I will be very upfront and say that's not for me. If it's very technical, then I will find somebody locally within my Kingston Chamber network, probably. But majority of it is very varied, and that's what I like to do. It keeps me on my toes and it's really interesting.
Alex, what sounds really interesting about your role to me is that you must get to see firsthand the benefits that good administration can bring to a business owner and their team, such as making them feel more in control, relaxed, and perhaps even being able to finally take some time out of the office for themselves. Would that be right?
Absolutely. And I think in a couple of instances, I've helped businesses grow. One particular business, it was just that one person, and then I've come on board, and then they've been able to employ other people as a consequence. Another lady I've done some research for has allowed her to not do the research anymore, grow her business, and she's got... She's had 10 new clients in the last year because she's been able to release certain things to me. I think that is the power of it, of enabling somebody else that you trust and who understands your business and can be your second brain, as I said, and be proactive in saying, listen, I think you should do this. This will help you. So it's not just doing the task. It's actually thinking how that business can benefit from changing some of its processes and procedures and making life easier for them and growing the business, and everyone's happy.
Absolutely. Alex, in your view, and given your experience in looking at a variety of different businesses and the administration services structure that they have within their business, could you give our listeners some tips as to what a good administration function can look like or should look like in a business?
I think it's one that is got a lot of processes and procedures put in place so that everybody understands the way a company does something. Everybody does it the same way. So, for example, having some standard operating procedures in place, and so that everybody, there's no questions. Everybody understands the way things are done, and if everybody follows the same procedure and process, then there's no query. There's hardly any mistakes. And I think with technology as it is today and software as it is today, those are the sorts of things that can help also add to that process and procedure being slick and effective.
You mentioned technologies there. Have you seen, or can you give us examples of how new technologies can help with the administration function of a business?
Off the top of my head, things like, all these software packages for bookkeeping, receipt bank that allows people to, just take a photograph of their receipt on their phone and upload it into their bookkeeping software. That saves a huge amount of time. People lose those sorts of things. If they've got it on their phone and they can quickly do it, then that's fine. And there's all sorts of other scheduling tools that people can use, social media tools, all these things that actually may take a little bit of time to get to learn, but the power of them and the cost effectiveness of them in the long term is reaps its benefits. So I think there's room for a good VA or a good EA or whatever you want to call it these days, or an OBM who comes in, shows you how to do these things, and effectively puts the pieces of the puzzle together and allows that company then to use all these facilities. And I think there's a place for everything. You've got to have backups when these things go wrong. But I think there's room for all these things in place as the pieces of the puzzle to make the successful running of the business.
And Alex, I'm sure that when you're talking about your services to some business owners, this might be the first time they're actually either employing someone or outsourcing a particular function of their business to another firm. And they might feel a bit nervous, a bit scared that things might go wrong. I'm sure you come across this issue all the time. Could you tell us a little bit about the conversation you would have around that? So perhaps our business owner listeners can start thinking about the concerns they have with outsourcing, say, the administration function in your case, and how perhaps you would counter that argument with them.
Well, first and foremost, I always say to them, listen, we need to have a chat. We need to understand each other. I need to know what you want to achieve and how I can achieve it for you. I also provide sort of a pack and show them all the professional things that I've put together. So I'm fully insured and any of my accreditations. And I will sit down with them and work out a solution of how we will work together, how they like to communicate, how many times, how, is it Skype, is it emails? And I would try and work with them in the way that they want to work. And then, if they could give me a task and we could try it out. I haven't had any problems with all the people that I've worked with, but I understand how people might feel. I've outsourced a couple of things personally myself to people. And yes, it is that strange feeling, or I've just let my little baby go to someone else. But I always make sure that I sit down with them, we have a long talk, we talk through it, and we work at a pace that they want to work at and in the way that they want to do it. And I go back after each task, and slowly, that then gives them the support that they need and the reassurance that actually they're outsourcing to a safe pair of hands and they can get on with what they want to do. And ultimately, that's the whole point of the service.
I mean, and that is the whole point of actually growing a business ultimately, isn't it, Alex? I mean, I can think of ourselves here as an example. Eventually, you do more of the thing that you're really good at, but you still have all of those things around the thing that you're good at that needs to be done. It might be, for example, administration, and either you hire somebody to do that administration for you, or if you can't find the expertise because you're in a particular niche sector that requires, a certain level of education or training to be able to do that particular type of administration service, you can call somebody like you, and I'm sure that initial chat is where you and the business owner figure out, okay, this is the thing that I can do, and this is how outsourcing it to me can free up your time, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, to do more of the thing that you're good at, to generate more revenue and grow the business even further.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Alex, what are some of the upcoming trends that you see in outsourced administration services? I mean, you've already very kindly described to us the difference between a virtual assistant and an online business manager. How do you see this sector of yours improving and changing and developing going forward?
I just think in America, the virtual assisting world, OBM world, is very well known. I just think it's getting more and more known in the UK. I still think it's quite new. I think it needs a lot people like yourself interviewing me and us talking about things for people to understand it more. People may have heard of it, may not have heard of it, hadn't even had time to think about it. And I think over time it's going to become more and more the way that small businesses and larger businesses work. Some of the big corporates are allowing some of their staff to work remotely, and the skills that people have got can still be used that way, and companies will save time and money. And I think going forwards, a lot of people will be using more and more remote services. I mean, some people I know use people abroad. I mean, I like to go and meet my clients, and the thing about Kingston is I like to go in and get to know them, and that's how I grow my relationship. But I think the power of outsourcing is going to grow and grow, and people working virtually with businesses is the way forward for some people, where perhaps budgets are limited and they can't afford to employ people, and all the costs that go with that, national insurance and holiday pay, all those things that go with it. I do think that going forwards that it will become more the norm, shall we say, that you employ somebody on that basis.
What are some of the lessons you learnt, or some of the experiences you had going up the corporate ladder in your career in corporate banking? Because that seems to be quite a remarkable journey from an intern to eventually trading FX, and then ultimately to selling back into big banks the dealing services and the dealing equipment that you used to use to do your own trades in the first place.
Well, I'll let you into a big secret. I only got my degree in 2007. So I actually left school with that. I didn't go to university. I went straight into Lloyds Bank as a management trainee. So that's where my banking life started. And as I said, I ended up taking a role in the back office of Chemical Bank, which is now JP Morgan Chase. And I think I was just very good with numbers, and I got spotted, and I was moved across to the foreign exchange desks, the money markets desk. So I was dealing foreign exchange with, you see it on the TV, with the phone in my hand and with the hand signals and all the rest of it, which all sounds very glamorous. But actually at the time, I don't think I realised what I was doing. It was just my job. And then moved across to the money markets, where I was in charge of the sterling book and the dollar book for a little while. And to people who don't know what that means, it's the money markets status of the bank at that time and how much money they had in different time frames, to cut it very short. I then went on to the corporate desk, so I was trading for the likes of P&O and people like that who were hedging their exposure when they purchased a boat and it was sitting in Italy and they needed some foreign exchange to cover their exposures. So I did all that. And then I met my husband, and our lives were out of sync, and I was falling asleep in my dinner as he was wanting to go out partying. So I thought life needed to change. So I was offered a job in what is now called Thomson Reuters, and I was able to sell the dealing equipment. So They had some dealing equipment that all the banks used. I was able to easily sell that back into the banks that I'd worked for because I knew how it worked. So I was there for about 7 years, and that's where my financial life was. I think I was just in a very fast-paced environment. It was something I got used to, and I think my career just sort of went along because I was just used to that fast-paced environment. Interestingly enough, my daughter's just gone and started at a bank in Canary Wharf and taken up the reins after myself, which I never thought anyone would do. I think it was just working in a fast-paced environment that suited my character at the time, and I was able to just keep up with it all. And it's, as you know, with financial, it's a busy environment, but it was a fun environment. I really enjoyed it, and I had some great pals, and some of them I'm still friends with today. So, after all those years, it was just a fast-paced environment which suited me at the time. And I was very lucky to be part of it. And I look back on it now with a lot of pride, actually.
It strikes me, Alex, that now in your role as an outsourced business manager, or outsourced, having your firm that you can outsource administration services to, you must encounter business owners that probably also don't realize that they're burning their own candle at both ends, just like once upon a time you were yourself.
Correct.
And I bet that makes for some interesting conversations when they finally realize that by letting go of some of the tasks that they're perhaps not even cut to do properly in their business, they can try to create a bit more of a work-life balance. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. And that's the whole point, is that I want to show people how, if you just give certain tasks away, if you're repeating something on a daily basis, there's either an app for something, or a piece of software, or a person that you can give it to. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm that safe pair of hands that they feel they can deliver that task to, and someone who's got a background, who will get on, do it, be proactive, communicate well, go back and say, listen, I've done that, what's next? And then that person says, oh, wow, right, okay, yeah, let's give us some more. And that's how it kind of escalates, really. It does take time, but it is a powerful thing to outsource, not only to VAs or OBMs, but, your social media, your bookkeeping, your copywriting. We can't do everything in life, but there are people who can support us. And that is the power of all these businesses in Kingston, that there's always somebody we can turn to support us in a specific task that we need doing if we can't do it ourselves.
I agree 100% with you there, Alex. You mentioned there earlier that you have done some work with Love Kingston, the local charity here to us. Could you tell us a little bit about that work that you've done with them?
Yes, I was transitioning, helping them transition rather into the Love Kingston charity that they are soon to become. And there were some people that needed support in the administration with various tasks that they were trying to put together, various events, and they had a new director and various people leave, and they just needed some support. So I knew Julie Pickering, and she asked me to support them, and I was very pleased to go in and support them when they needed it. And I'm there again if they need me again. So it's nice to give back to the charity, and also the people that I knew locally who were working amongst it, and give them some support when they needed it.
That's great. Alex, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
Key business lessons. Well, I guess business lessons from running my own business, which actually is only almost 2 years old. So I've only been running Auxilium Admin for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And some of that time I've only been doing it part-time as well. But I don't compare your journey with someone else's. Everybody's journey is different. If you're always looking about what someone else is doing, you can't focus on what you're doing. And at my age, my tender age, I have to say, after my career, I can do this, because a lot of people say, oh, why do you want to go and set up a business now at your time of life? I want to. Because I can and I want to. And also I've been so involved locally with local businesses and the power of Kingston Chamber that I want to give back to Kingston, because I've been supported by local people in Kingston to set up my business, and now I want to support people by offering my services back to them.
Alex, I also think that we first met, funnily enough, at a networking event locally that was run through the Kingston Chambers. For other small business owners that perhaps are only starting out. Perhaps there are startups and they just haven't figured out the networking thing yet, or are feeling a little bit intimidated by the whole networking thing. Could you just tell us a little bit about your networking strategy and how you perhaps overcame some of your own concerns around networking to sort of the successful networker that you are today?
Yes, I mean, I was introduced to the Chamber way before I set up my business, when I was thinking about it, and I went to one of their workshops on setting up a business. So it was very natural to me when I had established myself to actually become a member. I started off by going to some of the witch coffee mornings, meeting lots of people and all the people at Kingston Chamber, and my interest and my connections there have grown over the last 2 years. I network elsewhere as well. There's other networking groups in Kingston, but it's very powerful. It's about getting to know people, and it's about understanding other people's businesses, how you can help them. Networking is a vital thing, and you mustn't think that you're going to get loads of business out of it. It's all about getting to know people, talking to people, and thinking, how can I help that person, and how can I connect that person with all the people I know? And over time, your community of other businesses that you know grows, and you feel really established within the sort of business community. And Kingston Chamber particularly has been very supportive to me. I did some stats very recently about in the time I've been going, I've looked after over 20 different clients, but lots of jobs for them, but 20 different companies. And 8 of those have been referrals from Kingston Chamber. So that's
Wow.
the power of actually networking. The other things have come from friends and family, some from work and other networking groups, but the big one was the power of Kingston Chamber. 8 of those 20 came from there.
That's amazing, Alex. When you look back at your career journey today, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I guess the fact that I have mentioned it before, and I don't know why I'm hung up about it, but I did all this without a degree, which I don't think many youngsters can do these days. So my financial career was really born out of being me and working in the financial environment, and did my degree later on in life at Kingston, I might add. Administration degree between 2003 and 2007. And I'm just really proud that I have actually set up my business and it's working, because it's not easy. And you do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, thinking, will this work? Will anyone want to work with me? But I am proud that I've done it. And it's shown that it works, and it's shown that people do need my services. And yeah, I guess I'm just proud that I've actually done it later on in life.
And the good news on that front is that I think for our young listeners, and at the different schools that I've been presenting in over these last 2 years that I've been in the area, is that young students in, say, high school are just that much more aware of the fact that university isn't the only route. And I think that's becoming more and more apparent as I'm meeting these students around the borough, which is great, because there are many different ways to slice a cake. And you're proof of the case that, even in banking and even in becoming an online business manager, there's a myriad of ways in which one can achieve that. It doesn't necessarily need to be the traditional university route, which I think is just brilliant.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I don't think it's for everybody. And there are plenty of other things that people do. And in this day and age with tech and setting up businesses, there's so many opportunities for young people, really. It is quite incredible. I sometimes wish I could just step back, come back into time now and start a business now. It'd be so exciting, my career is what it was, and I was very happy, very proud and very happy to have done what I've done. But I think the youngsters have got lots of opportunities today.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to go to university in order to get where they need to get to.
Alex, what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
Not any projects as such, but I am getting to the point now where I would like to grow the business, whether that means taking on what we call in my industry associates to work with me, and grow the business so that we've got different strands and different specialisms within the business, so that when you come to us, there could be a sort of one-stop shop, if you like. But that's something that's in the pipeline, and I'm looking at trying to organise at the moment. But it's still early days, but I would like to grow the business in that fashion at some point.
That sounds like exciting times ahead.
I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Fantastic. As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So, Alex, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
Okay, so very importantly as a business owner, I take time out in the week for Pilates, and I've been doing it for about 9-10 months now, a new Pilates class. It's absolutely fantastic. So I use that as a client, so that's always something that I do. I belong to a choir. I like to swim. I like to explore the lovely eating hostelries in Kingston. There are so many, and there's lots opening up, and there's always somewhere new to go. And now my children are older and have fled the house. My husband and I are now looking at starting another project of upgrading our house or painting their bedrooms, as they've now left us. So 4 become 2.
That's great. Are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Okay, so a business book that I think is very powerful, it's a very thin book, is a book called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann. And it's a powerful story about giving. And, it's a lesson about the more you give, the more it will come back to you at some point. So a lot of people think, gosh, when I go networking or when I meet someone, what can they do for me? But I always think the other way around. I always think, what can I do for them in order to help them? And at some point that will come back. So that's a powerful book. It's The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann. And there are a few other books in his series, and that's a little paperback. And the other book I've read recently is a very powerful book by the MP Jess Phillips. It's called Every Woman. It's a rallying call to stand up and speak. And it was a very interesting read about her life in government and in the Labour Party. So that was an interesting read.
Are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you would recommend to our listeners?
I have to say that I absolutely love Saran Jones. So I don't know if the listeners know Dr. Foster series or Gentleman Jack. I think she's absolutely amazing. She seems to turn herself to all sorts of different characters, and it just keeps you on the edge of your seat. I think she's an amazing actress. I also love and adore Olivia Colman in things like the film The Favourite and in her series Broadchurch. So I think she's a fascinating actress as well. And I've also enjoyed watching Medici series on Netflix, all about Florence and all the things that went on back in time when in the banking world of the Medici family.
Finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Okay, so I have a website called auxiliumadmin.co.uk, and just to clarify, everyone, Auxilium is a Latin word. It means to aid, assist, and support, and it's spelled AUXI1LIUM. So the website where you can find out all about me is www.auxiliumadmin.co.uk, and I also have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and again that's Auxilium Admin, and you can find out lots more about me as Alex Hughes on LinkedIn.
That's great, Alex. Alex, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you very much, Amir.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.